In this session, we'll cover fundamentals of implementing the Vantage Equinox Security Widget, an overview of which was provided in the preceding session. Let's start with the basic premise of security system integration into a Vantage system. Now, only a small fraction of Vantage installers are also security professionals. If you're one of those few, you're in the most comfortable position for offering this integration. For the rest of you, you might consider partnering with a security professional. If you find a professional you're comfortable with in recommending on your projects, and then work with them on the recommended system to install in all of your projects, you'll find that it's easier endeavor than trying to work with multiple alarm companies, making sure that they offer a compatible system, and then learning what it takes to integrate to that system. And getting the layout of the system from a partner company becomes routine, so that you have the partitions and the zones and so forth.
It is the security professional's job to design that system, program the panel, and provide you with a full and accurate knowledge of the system layout.
Whether you are the security professional, partner with one, or are working with one selected independent of your recommendation, always check the list of Equinox rated drivers and compare to the products that they're going to install so that you can come to an agreement on a compatible system. Once you know the system that will be installed, it is important to do your homework so as to know how that system interfaces to the Vantage system. Typically there's an RS-232 serial port connection, but sometimes it's built into the security panel, and sometimes it's an add-on device. Make sure you know and specify all that is necessary to make the interconnection. Now, always design your layout so that the security panel is in proximity of an infusion controller. For highest reliability, do not design your interface to the alarm panel to use any Vantage serial port other than one on an infusion controller. Do not exceed 50 feet of wire run on the serial port, and make sure you know whether it's a 3-wire or 5-wire, so you know whether you have to put it on ports 1 or 2 if it's a 5-wire, or it can be on any of the ports. Now, as soon as we integrate the security system into the Vantage system, we must begin to consider any possible degradation of security features. It is important that you, the Vantage installer, as well as the security professional and the homeowner, know that the Vantage system does not store any access codes. The user of the Vantage widget interface must have a valid access code in order to disarm or otherwise access secure features and functions of the system. They then enter that code by use of digital key presses, which the Vantage system merely passes on to the alarm panel, which will do the validation. Now, that being said, it is true that the Vantage Infusion processor is an IP device, and its communication with the alarm panel could be tracked by a skilled hacker or someone familiar with the Infusion processor. So beginning with Design Center version 3.3, you'll have the ability to require authentication of IP connections to the Infusion processor. Vantage recommends that if you're going to integrate the security system, you require at a minimum authentication of all remote connections to the Infusion controller. Your project's particular circumstances might dictate the requirement of authentication of local connections as well. Once you know the equipment that is specified and you have the system layout from the security professional, you can begin to do what is necessary within Design Center to set up for the successful implementation of the security widget. First thing you need to do is to bring in an object representing the alarm panel. Now, we do this within the area view. I'm going to go ahead and select. You might consider placing this in the location where that would be within the room structure, and then we'll select the driver tab. We will go to the particular driver and we'll double click on that, and that will bring in an instance of that object. Now, the widget at this time does not refer to the alarm panel object, so the display name for that object is not important. But we do need to make the correct port assignment, so I like to do that as soon as I bring that in. So I'm going to go ahead and make that assignment. And with the alarm panel object, typically there's going to be child objects, which include typically partitions and zones. we notice that each partition brings with it a keypad child object. Now this is going to be used behind the scenes by the Infusion system to communicate with the alarm panel. So make sure to add the appropriate number of partitions to represent those that are implemented with the system. So to add a partition, we select on one and we go down and we add another. Now these will be viewed within the widget, so we're going to want to have display names. In this case, my first partition is the main house, and the second partition is the mother-in-law apartment. So those names are what will be displayed within the widget. Next, we're going to create a zone object for each zone in the system. These are assigned consecutive zones as they are created. We add zones, and each zone that we add is in a new position, incremented automatically. Once those are created, we can't change their position, so we want to make sure that we assign them according to their landing within the system, the control panel. You'll notice that there is also for each of these zones a display name, and these zones will be viewed, so we want to be able to give them a name. So I'm going to call this garage door, and zone 2 is going to be my front door, and so on. You'll notice also that for each zone there is a dry contact child object. Now this object is not necessary to name or otherwise manipulate for the functionality of the widget, but you might consider making the area assignment for the dry contact for a full-faith area tree representation of the objects within each area. So I'm going to take this first dry contact that's associated with the zone for the garage door, and I'm going to put that within the garage. And we'll give it a name for the purposes. So that's my security zone 1 garage door. Now if we go look at the garage, we will see that that dry contact is there with its display name. Now as a recap, all you need to do within Design Center in order to make the security widget work is first insert the object and make sure that it is assigned to the correct port. Then we need to create the partition child objects and give them display names, and we create the zone objects and we give them a display name, and that's all we need to do in order to enable the widget. Now often when integrating a security system with Vantage, there are interactions that you may want to enable between the two systems that really don't have anything to do with the widget. So we want to observe the security system object and its children objects so we can get an idea of what's possible. We'll examine some of these very quickly. So starting with a partition object, notice that there are multiple placeholders for running tasks when certain events are signaled by the alarm panel. Now these allow us to program any task that we may need to have run to meet specific project requirements. The number and specific events that are enabled will vary and depend upon the particular alarm panel product. When the system communicates through the serial port that a particular arm or disarm event, for example, has occurred, we may want to initiate, for example, a home mode for a disarm, or an away mode for an arm to away, or a night task if we want to do that. Now also if we select a specific zone, we see that it also will have some placeholders per each zone. Typically these are alarm on and off, as well as there may be in some cases trouble on and off. These allow us again to program any task that's appropriate to happen when an alarm or trouble condition initiates on that zone or when it clears. For example, we may want to send an email, or we may want to initiate a flashing light sequence. These are possible actions that you could create by assigning specific tasks to those events. Some panels will offer the trouble. You don't see them on this particular one, but almost all of them will offer the alarm. Now finally, the dry contact child that's associated with each zone can be used to trigger a task, as we see here. We occasionally are asked here at Vantage how to use a single sensor for both security and lighting functions. So here you have a trigger that you can use the security sensor to initiate a lighting function, or perhaps to change occupancy status for the zone. Now, we're not necessarily making this as a recommendation, and you might consider that there may be some disadvantages to this approach, such as reliance upon operation of both systems and the communication between them both, as well as the introduction of latencies that might possibly be noticeable. But if you were to choose to implement it, this is how you would do it. Now, if you do choose to assign tasks to these contacts, the recommendation we made earlier of assigning these to the area within Design Center representing their location increases in its importance.
This concludes our implementation guide to the Vantage Equinox Security Widget. Now, if you have any questions about what we've recommended or instructed herein, please feel free to contact Vantage Technical Support. And if you have ideas of implementations that go beyond these recommendations, may we recommend that you consult with us before finalizing your design specifications. Thank you for your attention, and we wish you success in improving the customer's experience through security integration.